So you guys open sort of like the back pin and take what looks like the first two chickens you can get a hold of.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a conversation with us because it's not like you went through the truck to like look for who's sick.
Mm-hmm.
Point being, they're all sick. So it didn't, they're all sick. So it's not a lot like you had to find the sick ones and they're difficult to find. But that kind of brought up the question of, how did you know that they were sick, or how did you know that you were going after these two chickens, which you'll answer whether you did or didn't. And what was it about it then doing it during the day? And you could see so clearly, because this conversation came up, that it wasn't like you were headed to Foster Farms to take these two specific chickens because you knew they were sick.
So Alicia had showed me the night before footage from this slaughterhouse that showed that the slaughter lines go at 140 birds a minute, and it's overwhelming for the workers there. And they are unable to hang them properly by their feet, which is cruel in itself, but it is standard slaughterhouse procedure. And it is not against the law. Actually, chickens are not covered by the Humane Slaughter Act, although other animals are. Birds are not. But they are hung. There are other laws that protect them. Right. Not very many, but the Poultry Production Inspection Act does protect them somewhat. So what was going on there was definitely against the law from the Poultry Protection Inspection Act. But so the lines go so fast that the chickens are unable to be hung properly. They are often pulled off the line quickly when they look to be dead, but they're not dead. And so they're thrown on the floor, and then dead bodies are covering live animals, and then the live animals suffocate. And when the birds aren't hung properly, then they can't go through the line in the manner that they should. If they miss the blade that is supposed to quickly and cleanly kill them and bleed them out, that means they go into the scalding bath alive. And the scalding bath is supposed to take their feathers off, but if they're still alive, they're boiled alive in that. And that was the horror that's happening inside this slaughterhouse, and probably many, many other slaughterhouses. The government had wanted during COVID to speed up the lines to 175 birds a minute. And they did try that at about 11 slaughterhouses. And I think it did not, it hasn't become, it was not accepted by the USDA, but the companies try. They want these slaughter lines to go as fast as possible. And it's really, really hard for the workers to keep up. So we were at that slaughterhouse, not to specifically protest slaughter, because we could have gone to any slaughterhouse for that, but the inhumane acts happening outside of the normal accepted slaughter at the slaughterhouse.
So you're saving Ethan and Jax from torture. I remember talking to you about this before the trial, right? It wasn't about death, or it couldn't be about death because that was going to be a poor defense, because they'd say it was food for humans, but it was about torture. So it wasn't so much that they were sick. You were saving two birds from the torture that they would have been exposed
Well, we
to.
were at that slaughterhouse protesting the torture. And so in terms of the birds, yes, we would have been protecting them from a very likely torturous end. And open rescue involves rescuing sick birds. So we pick sick birds. Now, if you look at the video, you're right. It's very fast. We run up. So the prosecution had many criticisms of our rescue, pointing to the fact that it must have been a theft because A, we ran, and B, we pulled out chickens we opened the door and there were chickens, and we grabbed them and then we ran back. So if you look at it without knowing what was going on, and then you would think, oh, those people are stealing chickens. But when you understand why, you understand several things. Firstly, yes, I was running. I didn't want Foster Farms to stop me from rescuing a chicken. It's true. They would have, right? So I still believe it was legal, but they would have tried to stop me. Secondly, I didn't want that truck to move. So I wanted to get there as fast as possible. The taking of the chickens right away is just proof positive that so many chickens, like you said, are sick at these places. We opened the door. Alicia is a very experienced chicken person. She has worked at chicken sanctuaries and dealt with thousands and thousands of chickens, and she has chickens at her own home. I have much less experience, but I have taken care of a chicken whom I rescued for a week. So I have, I've been on these chicken farms quite a bit, so I'm aware of what a sick chicken looks like. And it's easy to tell. Both these chickens did not move away when we opened the cage. Both of them had very pink combs, which is a sign of illness. They had feces covering the bottom of their feathers, showing that they couldn't get up. And so they were sick. And actually, it was proven that they were sick because Ethan, the chicken that Alicia rescued, did die within a couple days. And you've mentioned this before on the show. And I actually hadn't even thought about it until you mentioned it. But these animals who are bred for slaughter, they die when they're still babies. So these chickens were only between 44 and 49 days old. They were just a month and a 6 weeks old. And yet Ethan had the E. coli, the Enterococcus. He also had IBV, which is a virus that is basically very, very infectious among birds. It basically
it's like chicken coronavirus that the vet told on the stand, is what she called it anyway.
That's right. Yeah. It is a kind of coronavirus, and it infects 100% of the birds around them if they're around for a long, and kills 60% of them. So it's very lethal and to birds. And so they were definitely sick. So we were able to, in court, the prosecutors thought that they had a trump card because we picked them out so quickly and because we were running. And we basically just told the truth, which is, yeah, we were running. We were running because we didn't want anybody to stop us from rescuing a sick bird. And we could tell they were sick. It was very obvious. And the question really should be not why were you able to take that bird so quickly, but why were we able to find a sick bird so quickly on that slaughter truck? And it was because of what you said. There are so many of them are so sick because of the unnatural conditions in which they're raised for the first 6 weeks of their life.
Right. I mean, we do, have respect for people that don't want to eat veal because they're babies, but sadly the reality is we only eat babies. Chickens are 45 days old. Pigs are killed around 6 months, and cows around 9 months. So they're all under a year. They're all babies. We're eating babies. So yeah, don't have veal and maybe don't have the rest of it. If you have a thing where you don't like to eat babies. But I'm curious about your emotional state. I mean, you're so brave. And I know that we swing that word around with animal rescuers, but I mean, there's a lot at stake. And I am curious as to what's going through your head, and when you got back in the car, right? Because I've seen the video, you get back in the car, the chickens are totally freaked out.
Yeah.
Right. What happens to them then? How are you feeling and how are they feeling?
Well, they've never seen sunlight. They've literally never been outside in their entire lives. So this was the first time outside. It was the first time that anybody carried them the way we carried them. I carried them. The prosecutor actually made a point of noting that I let the chicken's wings flap around, which is true. And I apologized in court that it was my bad, that I really didn't hold the chicken properly, and I shouldn't have allowed his wings to flap around. But he was okay. He was how they carry them in these farms is they grab them by the legs and turn them upside down. That's how they were taken from the barn and put into the slaughter truck. The truck driver who was a witness also for the prosecution, he said the workers grab them, and they basically take maybe 4 chickens in each. They've got to put 5,000 on a truck, and they want to do it as fast as possible. They just grab them by their feet, turn them upside down, throw them in the cages. So, what I was doing was not, perfect chicken care, but it was better.
More respect than they'd ever received.
Yeah, exactly.